Go ahead.
Do you have any good Andy Kaufman stories or memories?
Other than what I saw on television, because they they shielded him from us so much, even though I was very dear friends with Lawler back then. Kaufman was a weird bird, and they didn't want to take a chance of anybody spooking him, anybody pissing him off. And if I did, I don't remember it. I don't remember having any actual interaction with him. I was at many of the shows, but they never made him available to us. And me and Jimmy's back now. Jimmy may have met him briefly because he was a photographer, and I know he took a lot of pictures of Kaufman. So Jimmy probably had some interaction with him. But I was just basically friends with a photographer and friends with Jerry Lawler. But I was never offered to meet him, and I never asked. I figured if they wanted me to meet him, they would have offered him to me, and they never did. Met Andre, but I never met Kaufman.
There was a really good documentary that
But
went over his wrestling career.
He had some real motherfucking heat in Memphis. It's hard to get more heat than Jimmy Hart had. And I never understood why Jimmy Hart had so much heat. I didn't get it because all he did was scream and yell.
We got a question. Did you ever work with Joe Pedicino, and do you have any memories?
No, I did not. Knew who he was. We we were Facebook friends, or maybe even MySpace friends at one time. So we corresponded that way a little bit. But no, I don't think I ever met him face to face. If I did, it was at a fundraiser show that I did for the Eddie Gilbert Memorial in Philadelphia, but it would have been a brief, short meeting. I didn't really know him.
We got a question about what we thought about Alberto and the Andre documentary. We've covered that, but if you want to go over it again.
Why are they saying he left TNA?
He no-showed an event. It was Impact versus Lucha Underground, and that was going on during the Hall of Fame. I actually watched that. It was pretty good. And he was in the main event, and he didn't show up, so they turned it into a triple threat.
That was good, but go ahead. And Jimmy hates Lucha Underground as bad as I hate TNA. So
yeah, it wasn't half bad. I enjoyed it. But Scott Steiner was there, and he teamed up with Teddy Hart, and I couldn't imagine a better tag team. It wasn't a good match, but it was fun to see those two lunatics together.
All right. Yeah, there's a reason I don't watch that show. My blood pressure's been pretty good the past couple of weeks, so it's probably good I don't watch it. But no, I never saw that show, and I don't know. But if he no-showed, he should have got fired. I mean, just like with Harry Barnett tonight, when you no-show, you should get fired. He advertised himself to be here, and or allowed people to advertise him to be here, and he fucking no-showed. Apparently, with Alberto, he was supposed to be there, and he wasn't. Fire his ass. I ain't got a problem with it.
I got a question that's going to take us to the end of the show. I guarantee it. Did you have any interaction with Owen Hart?
Oh, yeah. Actually, Owen Hart was a dear friend, and he loved Chris with a passion. He loved Chris so much that whenever Cornette would tell him that we were coming to a town, and especially in Louisville, Owen somehow always traveled with his own Canadian water. He would get WWE to stock him and Davey Boy Smith and whoever Owen or Brett rather. And apparently all of them guys drank Canadian bottled water. And Chris fancies himself as a bit of a Canadian, especially back then, because him and Owen were such good friends. And Owen would wait for Chris at the back door. He would make sure that we got in without any trouble. And so we'd knock on the door. It'd be Owen be the one to let us in, not security, not any of the fucking agents. It was Owen. He'd put his arm around Chris, give him a big hug. He'd have a bottle of Canadian water waiting on him. And never more of a class act than Owen Hart. And actually, I think Chris might have been better friends with him than I was, because he would talk to me for 5 or 10 minutes. And the next thing I know, Chris and Owen's off in a corner somewhere talking video games and wrestling and what the fuck Canadian shit and what the fuck over. But he adored Chris for some. I don't even know what his fascination with Chris was. I guess because he knew Chris wanted to be a Canadian. How many Americans want to do that? And nobody fucking cried harder than me and Jim, or Chris especially. We saw what happened. We saw it live. And the reason I knew for a fact he was dead was the look on Lawler's face. When he looked in the ring and he looked back, I knew by the expression on his face that Owen didn't make it. Even though we were not really told that till much later in the show, if I remember correctly, because they didn't want people to know. And oh my God, worst night in my life to see that happen, and couldn't have happened to a nicer, better guy. Bret Hart was a tenth of the man that Owen Hart was. And as a matter of fact, when it happened, there was a lot of people, including me and Chris, that they got the wrong one. They got the wrong Hart, because Bret was just a fucking prick and a cocksucker, and nobody liked him, and everybody loved Owen. I never knew any, and he loved to rib and fuck with people and practical joke people, and him and Davey Boy were always fucking with each other. And I don't know anyone who ever said a negative word about Owen Hart. So he's wrong. We got 4 more minutes.
I thought that was guaranteed to take us all the way to the end.
That's enough. That's enough. But no, good guy.